I'm Carl. I'm the Public Affairs Sergeant Major for USARSENT. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to be here today. So this is our first Lunch and Learn as part of our 100 Days of Strength. So for those of you who aren't tracking, 3rd Army, U.S. Army Central is getting ready to celebrate its 100th birthday in November of 2018. So as part of our campaign for that, what we've done is broken it down into 3 phases. Our first phase is the 100 Days of Strength that started January 3rd. We're using the hashtag 100 Days of Strength to promote that. Our second phase will start April 14th. That's our 100 Days of Service. And then we'll go into 100 Days of Honor as we lead in to the centennial, November 7th. So for our first Lunch and Learn today as part of the 100 Days of Strength, we've got Sergeant First Class Green from our G4 section here. And we have Janine from the nutritionist office here on Shaw Air Force Base. So you think G4 logistics, what's that got to do with health and strength? Sergeant Green also happens to be an ambassador to the Surgeon General's office. So what he's going to present to us today is the performance triad. And it's the overall concept of health and wellness. What makes us strong as soldiers, as individuals, as people. All of that ties into us and is important to us, and especially to leaders, because of readiness and the necessity for us to be ready to serve and to fight and win the nation's wars. So, Sergeant Green, Janine, I'm going to invite you guys up, and the floor is yours. Thank you guys very much.
All right, thank you, Master Sergeant. All right, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come out and learn about the Performance Triad. What an awesome way to start and continue the 100 Days of Fitness within and 100 Days of Strength within ARSENT. So the Performance Triad, if I can get the next slide, please. Okay, so has anybody ever heard of the P3 or the Performance Triad? Any takers? Okay, so ma'am, just really quick, the Performance Triad is broken down into 3 elements, okay? Because everybody have not heard about the Performance Triad. And you have physical activity, nutrition, and sleep. So if I was to ask in the audience, which one of those 3 elements are the most important? Which one would you say?
Nutrition.
All.
They're all important.
They're all important. There you go. That was sort of a trick question, but you're right. But to all of my physical fitness guys, I was expecting Mr. Griffin to say physical activity, but because I was going to be like, I feel you, Chief, but not exactly. So they're all equally important, and they all work synergistically together to optimize human performance. So a great definition is the P3 or the Performance Triad is a holistic approach to life cycle management for personnel health readiness, as Master Sergeant Carl alluded to. So as warfighters, we know the importance of being ready to win the nation's war, and for our family members, they have to be ready as well, ensure that they live a healthy lifestyle and continue on the life cycle as well. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention retired Lieutenant General Herrero. She's the 43rd Army Surgeon General, and she is responsible for the Performance Triad. She had a vision late 2011, early 2012 about the Performance Triad and how it could impact the Army family. So she was basically the starter point to getting the Performance Triad and doctrine into Army doctrine. So she made a quote way back in, I want to say 2012, the Performance Triad is an organizational imperative that the Army must invest to improve the readiness and resiliency of the Army family. And that statement made back in 2012 is still relevant today in 2018 as I stand before you. Okay, so now that we understand that there's 3 elements within the Performance Triad, let's just start with physical activity. Can I ask, why is physical activity so important? Like why can't I just sit at my desk or sit at home and not do physical activity and still be healthy? Why is it so important to do physical activity, just in general?
Makes me feel good.
Makes you feel good, right?
Makes you feel younger.
Feel younger?
Mm-hmm.
Start your day, actually.
Start your day? Yes, ma'am.
Also, as you have natural degeneration and deterioration of your body as you age,
Yes, ma'am.
it keeps being mobile, keeps you healthier and stronger, so it wards off the increased risk of injury, bodily injury.
Excellent. We're definitely going to touch on those key points, ma'am. Thank you for sharing that. All excellent answers. And you know what? Physical activity is fun. Just think back when you was a kid, when you was younger, or watching your kids play in the backyard or at the park. They're having fun. But that's physical activity. That is all physical activity. You're moving, you're getting around, you're getting the blood flowing, you're actually developing muscles and biomechanics. It's all physical activity. So when we take physical activity and to keep it simple for this this brief right here, let's just block physical activity into two pieces: cardiorespiratory and strength and endurance. So let's start with cardiorespiratory. So from the experts out there in the field, American College of Sports Medicine, CDC, NIH, what is the recommended amount of steps that Americans or people should take in general a day?
10,000.
10,000, right? Anybody else want to go for it? Everybody's consensus, 10,000? 10,000, that is the recommended amount of steps, 10,000. However, these same experts will share with you, if you cannot get 10,000 steps within a day, 5,000 is better than zero, okay? 2,000 is better than zero. As long as you're getting some type of physical activity, some type of steps in, because let's face it, everybody doesn't have a nice handy-dandy Fitbit or a tracking apparatus to track 10,000 steps. But there are certain things that you can do to stay physically active and getting your steps in. One way is by simply, let's just see. Okay, let me ask it like this. So when you go to Walmart or when you go to the mall or to the grocery store, be honest, who in here try to find the closest parking spot? There you go, Sergeant Crawford. Thank you, sir, absolutely. Now I've always raised my hand too sometimes. But a way to get around that is to park the furthest from the parking spot. If you're familiar with the Walmart here in Sumter, I park near Golden Corral. So it's almost like 100-yard walk for me just to get to Walmart. But that's my way of getting my steps in, getting my cardiorespiratory fitness going, and trying to make up for those steps that I didn't get while I was at work. Now in the cold weather, I see Major Thomas back there shaking his head. I totally get it, sir. But as it warms up, I would encourage individuals to try to use that strategy in their way of getting more steps in. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a means of recording how many steps it would take if you were to walk around, all the floors of this headquarters? And that way we could publicize that and people can know, well, if I did this many revolutions on the first floor, I would probably log in this many steps. And, if I take a break, every hour, every 2 hours and do, 2 laps, I'll have this many steps, and that way we're helping them track.
Yes, ma'am. That's actually an excellent question. What I would have to do, ma'am, honestly, is probably get with security guys to see can we bring a tracking device within the building to track that since we work in this type of location. But that's a good question. That's an
Sean?
excellent question.
We can actually measure it.
Okay.
At Health Promotions, we have one of those measuring, like for the distance
Yes, ma'am.
of a track. So we could potentially do that. So maybe not steps, but we could find out in meters, yards.
That'd be great because
Miles.
right now I'm recovering from I have a couple of herniated discs and I'm undergoing physical therapy. And one of the activities that they want me to push myself to do is walking more,
Yeah.
stepping away, standing up.
Excellent.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you, Janine. So we'll get.
So old people like me.
Oh. It's all good, ma'am. Okay, awesome. So we'll get with Janine and get that going, ma'am, and try to get the exact meters for you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So progressing from steps, because like Colonel Ferraro mentioned, she has certain limitations that require her to walk and get her steps in. And then you have other individuals in the crowd or in the audience that may like to run or jog or use the elliptical if they can, or the bike. So as you're seeing, we're still in the cardiorespiratory phase of physical fitness. And as many of you have mentioned, it basically shapes and shifts your mood. It makes you happier. It tends to make you happier, get your day started. And more importantly, it reduces the chances of CVD, cardiovascular disease, reduces the chances of type 2 diabetes, and it also basically increases lung capacity, which is all helpful tips as you progress through the life cycle. So that's the cardiorespiratory portion of the physical activity. Now let's talk about the other portion. And can anybody take a stab at that? Got cardio over here. What could be the other portion of physical activity? Weight training. There we go, strength training, muscle endurance. Okay, so when I mention strength training and muscle endurance to many people, they often say, well, hey, Sergeant Green, you know, I don't want to walk around looking like this. I don't want big biceps. And I tell them often, I say, well, you know, that's a part or a portion of weight training, but it doesn't have to be the total focus. Okay, when I think about strength training and weight training, I think about joint stability. I think about strengthening tendons and ligaments, stuff that's going to really, you know, support you as you go through life cycle or get older, and being war fighters as you have to maneuver, jump and dive, shoot, move, communicate. Those are the things that we normally don't train as being athletes and being soldiers, tactical athletes and being soldiers. So when I think about strength training, I would suggest to an individual, well, have you ever thought about resistance bands? Have you ever thought about using your body weight? You know, it doesn't have to be 2,000 pounds, or that's a little exaggerative. Well, a couple of 100 pounds, 315, nothing like that. But you can develop the body without making it ultra muscular. You know, if we're talking about bone density as we get older, you deal with a lot of female soldiers, particularly, that have hip issues, hip fractures, particularly in basic training, young females. And that comes from a lack of strength training in their adolescence and youth. And we can get into that a little bit later, but I'm just trying to show you, you don't have to worry about being ultra muscular or getting these big biceps if that's not your goal. Now, if that's your goal, we can definitely make that happen as well. But just at the beginning stages of strength training, let's just think about elongating the muscle and protecting the joints and ligaments from certain injuries. So with that being said, before I go into my demonstration, what's the biggest reason why individuals say they don't work out? Time. I find that answer very entertaining and amusing a lot of times. So really quick, I know a person personally that's married with kids. She goes to school. She works 2 jobs, and she's very active in a church. This person is very, very, very busy, right? Time is of the essence. Time is limited. And I asked her, I said, well, when do you work out? She said, I don't have time to work out, Sergeant Green. Can't you see I'm ultra engaged? I said, you know what, you are. But here's what I'm willing to bet. If we take those top 4 or 5 priorities, which they're all ultra important, I'm willing to bet that health and wellness is somewhere in there. You know, we just haven't discussed it yet. So as I talked to her, I said, do you have 5 or 4 minutes throughout your day to maybe do something? And she said, yeah, I can do 4 or 5 minutes, but what can I do in 4 to 5 minutes? Man, here I am right here to share this with you, ma'am. So basically what I'm trying to explain is, yes, everybody's ultra busy and time is of the essence, but health and wellness, whether you kind of tangibly see it or not, is somewhere in that top 5 of your priorities. Maybe it's intermingled or nested or sprinkled throughout your 5 priorities, but it's definitely within that scope of your top 5 priorities. You may just need to talk to someone to just kind of outline it out or goal set it. So when a person says they don't have much time, I always break out this gadget right here. You know, this is my 3rd one. I've lost a couple during PCSs and stuff, but I'm not losing this one. All right, it's from Walmart, relatively inexpensive, cheap. A lot of individuals in this room pretty much, you know, do a lot of traveling, going out the country and whatnot. So you can put it in your suitcase, you can deploy with it, you can do all types of magnificent things with it. But what I'm going to show you is just some basic movements you can do at your cubicle or at home when you don't have much time, you're with the kids. And it's all about consistency and developing a base and foundation of physical fitness. So right here, we're just going to simply step into this tubing and we're going to stand erect. So automatically, as I'm standing erect, proper posture, shoulders back, chest held high, my core is engaged. I feel my core engaged right now. I haven't did a crunch, I haven't did a twist, but my core is engaged, my core is fired. So from here, I'm just gonna simply curl up and contract or squeeze my biceps. And at this point right here, my biceps are engaged. Now, this green tubing right here is only 20 pounds of resistance, not that much. So right here, I'm just squeezing. And as I do this, I'm not going ultra fast. I'm just really nice and concentric, squeezing, eccentric on the way down, lower and slow. Right there over time with consistency, 365 days, you will be amazed of how you develop certain muscles and certain tendons that will develop and become stronger. So from that same position, the most injured joint in the body is the shoulder. Okay, I've seen individuals tear their rotator cuff up by putting groceries up in their cabinets because they didn't have proper body mechanics and their shoulders were not developed. They were weak and they didn't have the proper tendons and ligaments to strengthen the placement of the groceries. So right here, from the same position, core tight, body's erect, you come here from a bicep, just rotate your palms outward, and now we're right here. Boom. Nothing fast, nice and easy. And this right here will give you the shoulder strength, durability, and muscularity that's required to be functional. Once again, we're not trying to compete and be bodybuilders unless that's your goal, but for functionality purposes, physical activity, and becoming and remaining technical athletes, we have to get the bases right first. So many individuals I speak to also would like to have a stronger core, including myself for that matter. And one way we can do that is simply get right here, and this is all done in your cubicle, by the way. Not a lot of space required. I'm right here in my little box, my personal space. Right here, left foot forward, right leg slightly back, and we're just gonna twist up. Now my core is ultra engaged right here. I can feel my obliques, my lower abs, and my upper abs. And this is called a reverse wood chopper. Once again, nice and controlled. Within 5 minutes, okay? Nothing crazy. So this tube, I just demonstrated 3 exercises you can do within 5 minutes or less. Over a period of time will do amazing things for your physical activity. And this is just a disclaimer right here. So, and this is the master fitness in me. So if you go to the gym and you see a person doing side bends, I highly encourage you to do some research on that. That does not give you a smaller waist. That actually builds a different muscle in the internal abdominals called the quadratus laborum, and it makes the waist thicker and it protrudes it. I didn't know that till I was formally trained because I was the guy in the gym with 45-pound plate going crazy doing this number, you know. But once I found out and did my research and was trained formally, I understood that that is an improper way to, you know, get your obliques together. The obliques run diagonally. They run as such, you know, in a diagonal motion. So you want to rotate. That's how you train the obliques and get a smaller waist. Rotate. You might see individuals with a broomstick on their back, and they do this number right here and rotate. That's how you actually get to your waist or your obliques. Supine bicycle is another excellent one. As you can see, you're twisting right here and bringing the leg up. So anytime you're trying to work on your waist or really trying to shrink your waist or get to your obliques, always focus on twisting motions. Okay, that's just my pet peeve for the abs. And then,
Pet peeve as well, however. Can I just throw in?
yes, please.
Awesome. You see those people, and they're doing that twisting, the Russian twist, right? But they're laying on the ground, and they're kind of in a perpetual sit-up motion. It's just you're remaining up. That is putting so much pressure on your lower back. That's actually it's actually unsafe for you. So and so much pressure. So doing it in standing position is going to be much better than that sitting position. So slow and controlled, like he was saying, and you can totally feel that. It's just not in the seated position on the ground where you're putting all this pressure. That's not ideal. And the bicycle twist, like he was saying, you're constantly moving that. That's constantly getting moved, and you can always put your feet down, and you can or your back down, and it's
Do
okay.
more of the side plank because you're using your
Absolutely.
legs, your lower trunk to support your weight better, and you're getting to isolate those muscles in that twisting motion.
Yes.
I think it's healthier and it's actually better for you.
Yes, ma'am. And the plank is like the mother of core movements and exercises. You mentioned side planks, regular planks, elevated planks. Planks is the mother of core. And core, everyone, is not just the abs. I know you all may or may not know this, but a lot of people, it's the whole thing. It's the core, it's the lower back, a little bit of hips. And speaking of which, before I progress into my last demo, I just wanted to mention this right quick because most of us sit behind a desk or a computer. So it's also important if you could take just 2 minutes a day just to stand up behind your cubicle and do this number right here. You don't have to use your arms. You can go right here. So what we really want to do right here is strengthen our hip flexors. We're often in this position typing all day, and then when we get up, we have postural defects, and you might have an anterior pelvic tilt, meaning basically your pelvis is tilted. And that's a no, that's not good because that messes up posterior alignment with your body. Yes, ma'am.
We have ordered a few of those stand-up desks, and so I guess what I'd like to ask you to share with how much of a difference can that, just doing that make, standing at your workstation as opposed to sitting?
Significant. The health promotions team have had the standing desks for years. Sometimes I forget to sit down during the day, especially if my shoes are comfortable. You don't have to worry about when you're wearing boots. But yeah, it's not only better for our posture, obviously. It can be very exhausting initially for folks who are always sitting down throughout the entire day. So it is ideal to stand and then sit and go through that motion throughout the day. But it reduces fatigue. That's the biggest thing. I'm nearly as tired when I'm forced to sit at another desk and I have to just sit there and look at a computer screen because I have some sort of a job that's requiring this, and I'm there for hours. I am exhausted versus I'm doing the exact same job, standing up, and I could just keep going. But the fatigue is much less. And then, of course, I don't have as many postural problems anymore. So that's significant.
Yes, sir.
Personal.
So you mentioned hip flexors.
Yes, sir.
So if you can no longer sit with your legs crossed, is that a sign like you're not as? I know it's not. It means you're not as flex as you used to be, but could it be like a sign of something else? Because once upon a time I could sit with my legs crossed, but now I can't barely do it.
Just by listening to you, sir, I'm betting that you have extremely tight hip flexors. And what's awesome is myself, as long as Miss Janine, we can help you out with that. Master fitness trainer, Janine, her counterpart, of health promotion team, and we can help you with some stretching exercises and different ways to really lengthen that hip flexion. It might be something that's just stretching, right here, or certain things you can do with the band. But we can definitely talk after the class, sir, and I can prescribe you some stuff.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so my last demo, right quick, I just want to kind of give you a visual really quick. So right here we have 5 pounds of lean muscle, okay? And this is where that muscular endurance and strength training also comes into play. Because when you don't have time to get to the gym, or when you don't have time to, go for your walk and get your 10,000 steps, you really want to rely on your lean muscle, because 1 pound of lean muscle burns 7 calories at your resting metabolic rate. Meaning, if you're behind your computer and you're just waiting for an email and you're just waiting for a phone call, you are burning 7 calories by just sitting there. So if this was a person that had 5 pounds of lean muscle, just a person with 5 pounds of lean muscle, they're burning 35 calories by not doing nothing. That's awesome. That is awesome, okay? So, but then on the opposite spectrum, we take this right here, which some of us have a little bit, but this is 5 pounds of fat right here. And I'm sorry, guys, my bad. I'm sorry. So 5 pounds of fat, and basically this only burns 1.2 calories per hour. All right, so as you sit there and you don't do anything, you don't get any steps in, you ignore muscular strength and endurance, you don't get any cardio in, this right here only burns 1.2 calories an hour. So that's why when you have a ratio, you really want this ratio to be higher. You really want to have this lean muscle to kind of offset this down here, if that makes sense. Okay, all right. Are any questions? All right. So I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague right here, Ms. Janine.
Actually,
Welcome.
we can pass the fat. I don't mind.
Okay.
You want to pass it around?
I felt it.
Oh, there you go. All right. So thank you very much. I'm Janine. I'm the dietitian over at Health Promotions here at Shaw. So these are my favorite tools ever. This is the perfect example to show not only, yes, it's burning a ton more calories when we have more muscle on board than when we have fat, but this just drives into the nutrition world. So I'm going to see people who are not eating enough calories, you're going to burn this. Because just like Sergeant Green said, this is going to be it's a drain on your body if you're not getting enough calories. So if my body, I'm underfeeding, so we figured out how many calories you need, I need a minimum of 1,500. Now I'm only eating 1,300 per day. That's what I'm going to be burning. This guy, because I can just use it. It's so efficient to use. But that fat right there, that is not, that's going to be for a rainy day. Because listen, we got to save ourselves. We got to make sure we're going to keep that. So when we're going with yo-yo dieting, which oftentimes I see people end up doing because, we got to lose a bunch of weight before the PT test or something like that. And I promise I won't go into complete weight management. I don't want to do that. But when we end up doing the yo-yo dieting, when we're not getting enough calories just in general because we are on a mission to lose any extra, we're so focused, that's when we're going to keep that on board. We have something called the Bod Pod here at Shaw, and I'm going to recommend give us a call and make an appointment. It is completely free. It tells you exactly how much body fat versus lean body mass. It doesn't tell you exactly how much muscle you have on board, but you have a pretty good idea. If I'm gaining lean body mass, it's probably not my heart enlarging. It's probably my muscles that are getting bigger. So we recommend that people continue to follow up with that. We like that very much. It's an amazing tool to have on here.
Does that also measure your resting metabolism?
Yes, I could figure out the equation for you, put in all your information into my little happy equation, right, or all your information is an equation. But when I know how much body fat you have, it's going to be much more accurate because you could have, 15% body fat, 18% body fat. Well, that'll be drastically different from if you had 43% body fat because that body fat will reduce it. And it knows better than I do. I can't look at someone and say, oh, of course you had this much body fat. I'm going to alter that value now. So yeah, so that's actually a really useful tool for that as well. Absolutely. So let's see here. So on from calories, make sure you're feeding your body. I'm a huge fan of listening to your internal cues for hunger. Always listen to what your body's saying. If your body's saying, hey, feed me, probably feed it. If you haven't been drinking enough water, maybe let's drink some more water, make sure it's a hunger kind of a situation. This is a little demonstration, actually. I wanted to go over this really briefly. This is all the food that you could potentially eat if you're at, a lot of people try for 2,000 calories per day. That's just kind of a general for a lot of gentlemen. For the ladies, 1650 is what we have down here. You just basically remove the apple and the graham crackers, which, if you ask me, this was going to stay. I like graham crackers. So that's actually how much food we could have within one day, and it looks like a whole lot for a lot of people who are not. You don't think that? No, for 2,000 calories? I thought it looked good. So take a look at it, reassess it, see if that's actually how much you're getting in, right? And that's going to be so dependent. You're going to eat twice that. Are you exercising a lot?
I run 10 miles.
10 miles a day.
Well, then there you go. You need twice that. So yeah, so that's just for the general sedentary man, essentially, okay? So what's the white stuff? It's cottage cheese. It's for your bedtime snack. So let's see here. So as we're talking about the triad and just the importance of having this really healthy diet. And the big focus is that we have to fuel the body. So when we're focusing on foods, well, that aren't even food, the nutritional supplements, you're really only kind of doing half the work that the food could be doing. They're only partially there for you. So keep in mind that it's the fuel that you're putting in that's going to run you for your exercise and for the rest of your life to make sure that you're staying healthy. There's a huge connection between our diet and cancer risk, diabetes risk, just like the exercise we were talking about before, because exercise can also influence whether or not we're going to have cancer, or what kind of cancer we could potentially have, right? That's significant correlations there, especially breast cancer. I mean, whether or not you have the BRCA gene or not. So that's going to actually have a huge impact. Let's see here. What else were we thinking? Nutrition, sports. I want to go into sports nutrition. I just kind of got a blank there. So sports nutrition. What do you guys know what you're supposed to do? What do you do before you go for your 10-mile run?
I mean, I know what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
I've been a little bad about it lately. Do warm-up sessions for the run.
How about nutrition?
Was it nutrition?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll have just like a half scoop of protein shake with a little bit of milk and water.
Before your run?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I would
All
do
right.
it after and I would do carbs before.
Right.
Right on, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, the protein shake is only that one little snippet, right? And making sure that you do have that carbohydrate source for right afterwards.
I understand that.
Perfect,
It's
yeah.
mostly just so I don't get like exhaustingly hungry.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Is it first thing in the morning?
No,
That you're
I
running?
usually work out in the afternoon.
Okay, so if you have to think about timing of your day when you are working out, because always having some sort of a carbohydrate source before your workout, there's going to be a lot of different studies out there that you might run across where some of them are going to say, hey, don't eat before you work out because you're going to burn more fat. Valid, but you're gonna hit a wall a lot earlier. It's gonna be a much earlier wall, and you're gonna be like, I cannot work out. Like, you know those days? I was swimming yesterday, and I'm like, I can't get into another gear. I can't believe I'm still like floating here, like actually moving ahead. Like I should be sinking at this point. I can't believe I'm still moving. I just didn't have anything in my body. There was no fuel for my system, right? So having those carbohydrates before that workout. But if we're doing this in the afternoon, what was my lunch like? What was my afternoon snack like? Am I going to put too much in my belly so that I'm going to actually get sick because it's a really high intensity? Or is it going to be enough to keep me going for a really long run, right?
Like, usually, like, my lunches are maybe like a sandwich, or like right now, I've got udon noodles that I'll be eating
Oh,
for lunch.
goodness.
So not very heavy. by any
Yeah,
means.
but it might be a good idea to have a little bit more perhaps, huh?
So-
Especially if we're
so-
gonna have 10 miles.
So your,
Yeah.
your response to his ramen noodles was, oh my gosh, is that not enough or is that too much?
That's not enough.
Oh.
It's gonna be inadequate because you're just having a normal bowl, right? Yeah, yeah. And also he could, thank you, could have, you know, a lack of the fiber and the protein that keeps him full, depending on what kind of noodle dish we're talking about, because there's a large variety.
Like, I got a snack with cashews.
Oh,
at my
good.
desk as well.
Excellent. Still, I'm going to push that fiber. Because fibers probably should be with each meal. Just always keep that in mind. It keeps us full. And what does it do other than lower my cholesterol and keep me full?
Regular.
Thank you. Helps you poop. Pooping is good. Pooping is good. So as the sports nutrition, you have to think about the time that you're going to be running or lifting or what you're going to be doing and really kind of focus on that and making sure that if you're going to be doing anything, make sure you're feeling right afterwards. Something right afterwards. You got to replenish those muscles. Those aren't going to build if you're not giving them the nutrients it needs. And also make sure you're giving it carbohydrates, not just proteins, because those carbohydrates go into that muscle. That muscle has energy for the next workout, and water is going to follow those carbohydrates because that's what water does with carbohydrates, and it keeps those muscles hydrated and feeling good. So that's what, you know, when you take out carbohydrates from your diet and you're like down, well, yeah, you're gonna be sore, and you're down 5 pounds, you're like, gosh, I feel so svelte. Because the carbohydrates are missing. Now you just don't have the carbohydrates, so you have to put those back in to feel well hydrated, not so sore. Yeah, absolutely. So that's sports nutrition 101, and then staying fueled throughout the day. So if you're not eating breakfast, probably eat breakfast. Most of you are normal, like 7:30 to 4:30 folks. Eat your breakfast, eat your lunch, eat your dinner. There's a lot, you know, I wanted to bring this up. There's a lot of people talking about intermittent fasting now. It's gotten really popular. Who has heard about intermittent fasting? 1, 2, 3. That's it? That's all? Okay, intermittent fasting.
Same as people who go on those juice cleanses.
Similar. So people are going to be either not eating all day one day, or only eating within a 5-hour time frame, or skipping not eating for like 16 hours, and then finally eating only for the rest of that day, and then skipping 12 hours. Don't do it. Basically, the only evidence that we have that's been beneficial, what has been beneficial, is not eating over the 13 hours at nighttime. 13 hours is a key number. It's the only scientific evidence. And we're getting it from when people observe Ramadan. So actually, but we don't recommend that people don't eat throughout the day. People should be eating throughout the day because that's when you're most active. But it's basically skipping after you're done with dinner, after you're done with your evening snack. Now wait until the next morning, ideally 13 hours later, and you're gonna go ahead and eat your morning breakfast, okay? So that's kind of the goal with that. So I didn't know, there's only a few people who've heard of it, so just keep that in mind when you hear about it. Not much scientific evidence on that one.
Okay.
Let's see here.
I think we hit the refueling for the tactical athlete, so
Yeah.
most of the war fighters are here, and just maybe a little snippet for family members, just to kind of help out.
Members.
Yes, because it may be a little different for the war fighter opposed to the wife or the husband at home.
That's valid. That's excellent. So keep in mind that everyone should be having a balanced diet. What we did up here is basically like MyPlate, choosemyplate.gov. I like it. It made life easy for me. I look at Pinterest and I get my meal ideas from there. I'm looking at a recipe and I'm like, falling short. Only 1 onion and the entire recipe? Are you kidding me? That's not enough vegetable. That's not going to fill my tummy. Keep in mind what did you guys have for snacks or for lunches when you were a child? What was your lunch as a child? A sandwich? What was it with that sandwich?
When I was a kid, I didn't like peanut butter and jelly, so I usually got bologna and cheese.
Okay,
back then.
so she got a bologna, cheese,
Bread.
bread. What else went with that bologna and cheese sandwich?
Usually
Milk.
Miracle Whip.
Miracle Whips.
No, my mom didn't give me chips.
Okay, what did your mom give you?
It was an apple.
An apple. Okay, fantastic. Basically, she's gotten like 4 food groups right there out of the 5. That's great. Keep that up. It's the getting your 3 food groups. What's that? Well, a lot of people like bologna.
Lick the
So-
teeth, the door.
So make sure that you're getting your fruit and vegetables with most meals, ideally, because that will get you full and feeling full. And that's for even your family members, absolutely, especially your children. If you have kids, those kids need that stuff. And if they're not big vegetable eaters, or I wasn't a fruit eater when I was a kid, so my mom's like, oh, more vegetables. Here you go, kid. You know, whatever works for your family, absolutely.
Challenge is, not, because you don't want to injure your kid who doesn't get as much physical activity as, maybe I did when I was growing up.
Sure.
And what activities help them burn calories and build strength, that's fun to do. Because I eventually would like to get my 8-year-old daughter into running, but I can't right now because I'm not doing it. But
Yeah.
she'll get fatigued after, half a block and want to walk.
Does she have a bicycle?
Now she does, yeah. So I bought a bike, and that's one thing that we're going to start doing together.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. But think about when you have to you have to increase your endurance. Same idea. She's just a smaller version of you that has to increase her endurance. A half a block, yeah, sure, she might
Her
be
mouth has
exhausted.
got a lot of endurance.
What's that balance today, knowing that kids tend to be more sedentary today than they used to be? And I think back to when I was a kid growing up, I ate a lot, but I was also always outside, always playing. And it seems like kids today eat as much as they did when I was a kid, but they're not doing as much. So what's the recommended calories for kids?
That's actually very, very dependent on that child, be it a sedentary child or a
Active.
very active child, moderately active child, and then it's also dependent on age. So it could be anywhere from like 1,200 to 2,200. So I mean, it's so dependent, and so, but also kids should be paying attention to their hunger cues, much like we should, instead of actually documenting calories for these kids. So as long as we're feeding them that healthy diet, making sure they're getting full off that fiber and staying full off that protein, getting enough calcium. 'Cause an 8-year-old child should be having about 1,400 milligrams of calcium. That's like 4 servings of dairy, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't get her to really drink much milk. but
Then you look at other sources
cheese
of
or-
calcium-rich foods. We always just put dairy on because it's easy. Be it almond milk, soy milk. Doesn't really matter. Almonds are a fabulous source. So, yeah, it is very complex nowadays, absolutely, because they are not necessarily always as active as we were. But we do recommend that, see that computer right there? 2 hours or less of screen time. That's computers as well as iPads and TV. Right on, exactly. I mean, they have to do their homework, and it's oftentimes in the front of a screen. So you're sitting there looking at a screen. So yeah, so maybe that's the screen time. So yeah, so 2 hours is going to be recommended because that's stationary time. Yeah, the rest of the time just trying to get it up.
If we could just move into the importance of sleep.
Oh, of course we can. Come on, bit it back.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
So sleep is important for the entire family. It's important for all of us.
Yes.
And I'm going to make a quick note.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of individuals over the past few years, specifically, and don't take any offense to this, is Army folks who will come to me and they're like boasting about how they're only getting 4 hours per night. Are you kidding me? How are you even surviving on 4 hours a night? I mean, I'm getting 8 and I'm like, I could use another half.
Sleeping your life away.
What's right? I know. What am I doing? Laying in bed for 8.5 hours, maybe. So that culture here in the Army is clearly changing, especially with this performance triad, and I could not be happier.
Yes.
So-
And just a caveat to that, most of us that wears the green suit understands that when you deploy it, that's often the key number. 4 hours of sleep, wake up, and you're good to go. But like Janine said, especially back here in CONUS, it's not imperative to do that. You know, we're not, you know, guarding the fences or in the foxhole back here in Conus. So we really need to try to maximize the recovery phase and get the proper sleep that we can. I'll be the first to admit it. It is challenging. Particularly, I'll use myself for an example. I was trained to get 4 hours of sleep for a very long time, and to reverse that cycle can be challenging. But we'll show you some apps here in a minute that can help you out with downloading to your phone to kind of assist with that. And you may have to see a provider to get some more specific tips to help you out as well. But to maximize the amount of sleep, 6 to 8 hours is very, very important for your recovery, regenerative stage of your fitness.
And everyone's going to be so different. Children are going to need longer. Elderly will need shorter, right? Everybody is completely different with how much actual sleep they need. The training for 4 hours a night and only 4 hours a night, it should be only short-lived. But there was really no education to say, hey, now we have to get back to normal life. You're no longer in a deployed location. You no longer have to do only 4 hours. You don't have to be tough all the time, because that's not really a tough state of mind. You actually might not be functioning fully with only those 4 hours, and you probably aren't functioning fully at that 4 hours point. So where's the 8 hours of quality sleep if you can? Unless you do better at like 6, you could do very well at 6. Could do well at 7. It's dependent on the person.
Absolutely.
And athletes, hey, Mr. 10 mile per day, you might need more.
I can't get sad things. I have terrible sleep, and it's not for lack of trying. I can't get my brain to shut up.
And the caveat off of that is a challenge for a lot of war fighters in the room probably. Like I said, for myself, that is a challenge. So I don't have the app. Can you go to the next slide, Master Carl? Thank you. So I don't have the app downloaded, but what I did do is I talked to a couple of close buddies, and they say, well, hey, Sergeant Green, turn off your laptop, turn off your lights. You might want to listen to some soothing music, and that kind of stuff works for me. But whatever modality that you can use to kind of help get a little bit more quality sleep, it will optimize your performance, especially being, like I said, tactical athletes, or for family members, kids, especially kids that spend a lot of time on the computer and the screen and different social media sites. They may be lacking the quality sleep they need as well. So if you at home as the parent, or as the person at home that's in charge, basically kind of create that culture, that will spill off into your kids. Really quickly, I did want to mention, because I see the energy in here, Colonel Fornaro mentioned about her kid being active, and Master Carl mentioned about how it used to be and kids being active now. So really quick, childhood obesity is a major problem in the U.S. right now, particularly in the southern states, but really across the board. So the point that we're having that dialogue in this room right now lets me know that you all are in tune to what's going on, and you want the best for your families and loved ones. So I really will keep that in mind, because it really does start at home. So if you had that coach, or riding a bike with your kid, or noticing how you used to be compared to now with your kids, then you can definitely impact and affect change right there with your own kids. And hopefully that will impact the community at large. So thank you for bringing that key point up. But here, next slide please, Master. Here's a couple of apps you can download to your trusty phone. I can send these to you all in email form as well. For sleep, I heard mindfulness is a pretty good one, and sleep time. Physical activity, you have the physical readiness, FM 7-22, which is a good one. And you have MyFitnessPal for nutrition. You have all these types of apps you can download right on your phone right there to kind of help you out. I know one of the colonels in my shop, she has the Army Physical Readiness app on her phone, and she follows it to a T. She does the preparation drills and everything, just like she's preparing for APFT. And I said, that's awesome, Colonel Latson. So kudos to her. So a slew of apps, and I can give you some more if this is not your cup of tea right here to help you out. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to kind of recap the performance triad. It really is important. And
all them, and not one of those faces looks happy to me.
that's after a good workout, man. That's after the physical activity part. But the performance triad, it really is central to optimizing human performance and overall health. Physical activity, sleep, and proper nutrition really is the capstone of overall health and wellness. And so right here at the bottom, we look and feel our best with quality sleep, activity, and nutrition. Definitely want to thank everyone for taking their lunch break out to come in. Hopefully we provided some added value information for you and your families. And I just want to thank Master Carl for inviting us out as well. And Master Carl, I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right, I want to thank you guys all for being here today. Again, join in the conversation, hashtag 100 Days of Strength. We will have this video posted online. We'll have it on our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and the website. And we encourage you also go to the website and download our goal sheets. Motivate yourself to get a little bit more active, maybe set some other wellness goals, maybe look at getting a little bit more sleep. I can tell you from my personal experience, I was a first sergeant in a warrior transition battalion, and I can tell you that this triad really is key to everything. It's not just about your nutrition, it's not just about your fitness or your sleep. Those three things combined, they impact your body's ability to heal, they impact your mental wellness, your emotional stability, all of that. They're all factors. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, that's all part of us maintaining our strength, maintaining our readiness as service members. So thank you all very much for your time. And we hope to see you along with some of your coworkers in February for our next Lunch and Learn. We'll have more information on that one coming out within the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.